Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric here with Iraq Veteran 8888. Today we got some more 2A news for you, and this one is kind of a little bit of a shocker. I've read this headline. I was kind of surprised a little bit, and it seems that old Nikki Fried wants to free the weed. Now, that's not the title of the article. However, I feel like maybe they missed a pretty crucial chance to have a play on words there, but this particular one comes from our friends at AmmoLand. This one was written by Dan Wose, and it's entitled Nikki Fried, Weed Laws and Suing the ATF. Oh boy, there's a lot going on here to unpack, so we are going to dive into this one. I would like to take a moment to thank our friends at Sonoran Desert Institute for supporting our videos. If you're looking for a career in gunsmithing technology, they're definitely the go-to people to look into. They've got some wonderful distance learning programs, great instructors. All of their courses, really, really awesome, put together by some of the best people in the industry. Check them out, Sonoran Desert Institute, SDI. Go over there and get yourself some education and tell them we sent you. All right, we're going to dive right into this one. Okay, I'm going to just get reading here. Oh, and of course, this comes out of Florida. And we're going to dive in a bit deeper here, but there's a very interesting political landscape sort of developing here in Florida. But let's break into it. Florida's Agriculture Commissioner, Nikki Fried, is suing the Biden-Harris administration, the ATF, and the Attorney General Merrick Garland in court over cannabis prohibition on the federal 4473 form. Now, we all know Florida is a weird state, and the Agriculture Commissioner position is not an exception to that rule. One of the most important things is that the commissioner oversees the concealed weapon and firearms licensing program within the Sunshine State. Mrs. Fried is one of the Democrats vying for the Democrat spot on the ballot for the governorship to challenge Republican Ron DeSantis. She has tremendous power over firearms in Florida, and she hasn't been a friend of gun owners in the past, so why is she fighting for your gun rights right now? Without going any further, I can most certainly tell you that it's all political. Anytime you see these random pundits, whether they're Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter. Anytime they start sort of preaching to a certain group of people that they think they might be able to kind of gain some traction with, a lot of it's political. And you tend to see a lot of this, especially in election years. I mean, this midterm is huge. And Ron DeSantis is a very popular, figure across the board in, let's just say, to the right and to the Republicans, so to speak, which, I think Ron DeSantis is a pretty solid guy. I mean, most of his reasoning in terms of various things he supported or not supported over the years, I tend to agree with. He seems to be a pretty honorable guy from what I can tell. Most of his reasoning seems pretty logical. I can't really, find very many faults in his logic in terms of the stuff that he supports. Now, of course, there's been a lot of controversial things that Ron DeSantis has supported, such as this whole Disney situation, which we're not going to get into in this particular video. But Ron DeSantis is not afraid to put his boot down when the situation presents itself. So it is pretty odd to see someone who is gunning for, no pun intended, but gunning for a governor's seat, basically, and someone who is a Democrat to go after the ATF for something like this. Now, I'm going to give some of my thoughts on this, but first, let's continue with the article. The answer is simple. She is a former lobbyist for the cannabis industry and a vocal advocate for weed. Florida is one of 37 states with legal medical marijuana, and Mrs. Fried has a state medical marijuana card. The problem is that she also has a concealed weapon and firearms license. The 4473 asks the person buying a gun if they are an unlawful drug user. It says explicitly that the use or possession of marijuana remains unlawful under federal law, regardless of whether it has been legalized or decriminalized for medicinal or recreational purposes in the state where you reside. She is claiming the lawsuit is all about the Second Amendment rights of gun owners, but if she wants to protect the Second Amendment and gun rights of the citizens of Florida, I know where this is going, then why does she want to get rid of preemption? Preemption prevents anti-gun localities from passing their own gun laws. It is a bedrock of gun rights in Florida, yet Fried, who claims to be a defender of the Second Amendment, wants to scrap it and let gun grabbers ban guns locally. So one thing that I would like to just sort of add to this situation is that it is no mystery that I do support the decriminalization and legalization and otherwise complete, legalization of marijuana. I'm not a user of marijuana, but I don't think it should be the state's right to tell people that they can't use it if they're an adult capable of making whatever decision they want to make in life. I think that we're creating a very dangerous precedence here, where we're basically allowing the government to just become whatever nanny they want to become in any situation they want to become. I mean, we see that with this ministry of propaganda and all of this stuff that's flying around on social media that we see. And, you should not put these people in positions to have power over your life. And I think that in any type of regulation, no matter what industry it affects, it's a pretty scary situation. And I agree with Nikki Fried here that, now, probably not for the same reasons. I'm just going to preface this with that disclaimer. Not for the same reasons, but I do agree with Ms. Fried in that, yes, it is terrible to, for someone who is a user of marijuana to not be able to buy a gun when alcohol causes way more problems than marijuana ever will, okay? And then you got people out here driving drunk, doing all kind of terrible things, getting drunk, beating their wife, doing no telling what else while they're drunk. And of course, alcohol has been the dirge of society for quite some time, and that is pretty clear when you look at violent criminal cases and DUIs and all of the other stuff. I'm not saying somebody shouldn't be able to have a drink. Of course, I don't have a problem with somebody having a drink. But if someone who's a drinker can buy a firearm, why can't someone who happens to use cannabis, whether recreationally or medically, why should they be prohibited from exercising their Second Amendment rights? I mean, just because you're high, does that forfeit your life? Does that make your life not worth defending or not? So what? Do your Second Amendment rights end where that starts? And I've always taken issue with that. Even though I'm not a user of those substances, I still don't think that it should be the government's place to determine who can and cannot have a firearm, especially using something like, I mean, when we look at cannabis, when we look at all of the, let's just say, times that people are prosecuted for cannabis, it's usually people of color, it's usually poor people, it's usually minorities, it's usually groups of people that they can take these laws and they can go, all right, we don't like these people, so we're going to find this little magic item here. They'll take that law and then just apply it, to whoever they want to in whatever way they want to. And this sort of selective enforcement. And, we've done some videos before on the idea of selective enforcement. And 2A is intermediately, absolutely intertwined with the concept of selective enforcement of cannabis and things like that as well. So why we can say that, okay, well, maybe the reasoning for Nikki Fried going after this is probably, let's just say, selfish, and maybe for the purpose of her running for office and nothing more, and at the deep underlying mythical and mythical sort of level, right? Does she absolutely support your right to defend yourself even if you're a cannabis user? That answer is probably no, right? Like, it's probably more of a selfish reason. However, I do have to say that I do support her idea of trying to go after these people and to get that particular item removed from the 4473, because no matter what political ideas you support or don't support, at the end of the day, I think it's important to, for people to make their own health decisions, their own decisions on what they're going to put in their body or what they're not going to, and their own decisions on how they're going to protect themselves, right? Someone should be able to do whatever they want as long as they're not hurting someone or committing a crime or going out and making a big deal about it. I feel that way. I know there's a lot of people on the right. I hate to keep saying that, but I mean, that's the vernacular that gets used in our general community. They always just want to point fingers at certain people and put them in groups, but I know that there's a lot of people on, let's just say, our side of the aisle or on the right side of the aisle or whatever you want to say, that don't support cannabis legalization, that they've clung to this very, very erroneous stigma that drug users are terrible people, that they're immoral people, that they're lazy, that they never will be successful. And of course, all of the media campaigns from the 80s and 90s really just tried to get its claws in people and make them, think that drug users are terrible people. I mean, remember all the ads of the egg going in the pan and frying? They say, this is your brain on drugs. So there's an entire group of people. Now, of course, all the pharmaceutical companies wanted all you little brats on your ADHD medicine and all of your random pills they keep you hopped up on when you're a kid. Oh, you got some behavioral disorder. So of course, when it's their poison they want to put in you, that's completely okay. But if you decide to use something that's natural, all of a sudden you're the devil. This is your brain on drugs, and it's a fried egg. So this is really more about big pharma and not so much about what's actually right for the end user, the individual who wants to decide what they're going to do and what they're not going to do with their bodies. And I think it's terrible that, we've allowed big lobbying efforts on many sides of the equation to dictate what we do with our lives, and that's wrong. Whether it's lobbying efforts to try to infringe on your Second Amendment rights, lobbying efforts to try and have stricter control on censorship and, censor your First Amendment rights, your voice when it comes to discourse and getting out there in not only the social media world, but just anywhere. But then also when we look at, what you can or can't put in your body, I think it's terrible to give them a blank check of infringement anywhere. We should fight that at any turn, even if it's an area that we may not personally agree with. We can agree that people should have the right to make their own decisions and that we're all free people. Okay. Lying on the 4473 is a serious crime and could land someone in prison for up to 5 years. Since Fried uses weed and has a concealed weapons permit, and has admitted to owning a firearm, Fried has violated federal law when she purchased her gun. Could she be covering herself by suing the federal government over the 4473? So that is the question that Dan Wos is ultimately posing here. And look, I'm probably going to draw some hate here on this, and that's okay. I'm completely all right with drawing hate when I say this. So should being a user of marijuana prohibit you from buying a firearm, and should it be a line item on the 4473 that someone can get in trouble for lying about? And the answer is no, absolutely not. They need to do away with that question. They need to do away with that particular area because it's such a cloudy, it's constitutionally cloudy and constitutionally gray in so many ways. And I must agree with Nikki Fried. However, I don't agree with, what her reasoning likely is, right? Is that, okay, as the author of this article pointed out, is it a selfish reason? Is it because she's trying to pander to gun owners and try to get votes in Florida? Likely so. Is that because Republicans have always kind of stood on their hands when it comes to cannabis legalization? Yes. The answer is yes. So her side of the pond, or her side of the political argument, knows that there are a lot of retired people in Florida, many of which use marijuana medically for various things. There's obviously a lot of people who use marijuana recreationally in Florida. Delta 8 and other types of products are legal in the state of Florida. So the state has sort of laxed a bit and is trying, the same thing that Georgia has tried in terms of the Delta 8 tinctures and flour and things of that nature. So I think that she's pandering to not only gun owners, but also pandering to the voter base that likely wants to, there's probably a huge subset of people that love their guns, but also love their weed. And whether or not we want to agree on it or not, the fact of the matter is this is one area that the Republicans are far behind the curve on. They need to get with the times and get with what culture is. And culture has changed a lot in the last 30 years, in the last 40 years. Hell, in the last decade, culture has changed considerably, right? And I think that the Republicans are clinging to this long-lost dogma that in order to be considered a conservative, you have to be anti-drug, you have to be, the model Christian, and all of this sort of thing. And I think that for them to really, truly understand what their voter base is moving forward, they have to get rid of those old dogmas. Look, it's okay to have the views that you have and say, well, you know what, I don't agree with cannabis legalization, or I don't agree with whatever. Oh, well, you're not a Christian. All right, I don't like you, whatever. It's okay to just think that or to have that view. But I think in order for it to be, let's say, a model for a political party such as the GOP, I think it's a terrible thing to institutionally ingrain into the party, because I don't think that really represents the bulk of the party anymore, right? The bulk of Republicans, I mean, a lot of them that are very freedom-minded people probably use cannabis, right? Obviously, lots of people on that side of the coin love their firearms as well. And it's one of those unspoken things that a lot of people don't ever want to talk about because they're in fear of getting in trouble over some stupid crap. And there's a lot more people out there, more than likely, that would be so happy with something like this taking root. And yeah, let's remove that freaking dumb question from the 4473 and let's stop pretending that society at large is not okay, or that society at large isn't okay with the concept of recreational cannabis use, especially when you compare that to alcohol and all of the terrible things, that come about from that. I mean, I love a drink from time to time myself. But it doesn't mean that I'm going to go out and get plastered and then go do some stupid crap. Or it doesn't mean that I'm going to get plastered and then go to the local gun shop and go buy a firearm while I reek of Johnny Walker or whatever, right? So it's all about moderation, temperance, right? Like everything we do is in moderation. It's okay to have it large every now and then with your buddies. But for the government, I guess the ultimate question that Nikki Fried is throwing into the face of the ATF and to the establishment is, do you have the right to jail somebody over this when there's obviously a cultural revolution in regards to not only cannabis use, but cannabis as it sits in the same league with firearms? There are many, many people that want both. And eventually, politics are what they are, but laws are always downstream from culture. And if you can say one thing about Nikki Fried, okay, you may not agree with, let's just say, her overall thought process for why she's doing this, but you can't disagree with the fact that she at least understands where the culture is and where that culture lies downstream. Now, we can fight the 2A fight later, but her strategy is a valid strategy, and I agree with it. Not for the same reasons that she is doing it, but at its holistic level, if she holds true to her word in terms of why she's trying to do this, I actually agree with Nikki Fried in this particular situation. I wish Ron DeSantis, now look, Ron has already, talked about wanting to get constitutional carry passed in Florida. Of course, we know there's a ton of rhinos that are standing in the way of that. So I'm not going to hold that to Ron DeSantis, but it would be refreshing to see Ron DeSantis come out and say, all right, tell you what, you put a bill on my desk that says that we can decriminalize, cannabis in our state, I will support it. And you'd be surprised how much more support he would get from a huge subset of people that probably would never vote for him in a million years if he would just come out on that simple, common sense approach to cannabis. Thanks for watching, guys. I really hope you enjoyed today's presentation. And big shout out to Ammo Land. I did talk to John Crump the other day. I'm going to be going on his show, so stay tuned for that. I will give you some dates so you can tune in for his show, and I'll be a guest over there with John Crump, who I think is a great dude. And I love the balance of views from Ammo Land, so definitely check them out. Really good people. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Have yourself a wonderful day. Don't forget to check out SDI, great group of people. Thank you so much to our Patreon supporters. You guys are amazing. Thank you for being a part of my life and what we do every day. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Also, go over to Ballistic Ink and pick yourself up an awesome new t-shirt. That's a way that you can totally support us if you want to, if you love the content and you wish to support us directly. That's how you can do so. Check out the link below over at Ballistic Ink. Have a great day. Many more videos on the way. We'll see you soon.